Disclaimer. These stories will contain graphic depictions of horror elements, including, but not limited to, gore, graphic depictions of violence, body horror, murder, just all the horror. So please exercise caution when listening. Good evening. Welcome to Sniper's Creepy Crypt, the spookiest place in the here and there, the place between where you're coming from and where you might never leave. I am Sniper Shadow, and I am here in this our month of the horror and macabre to bring you tales of the utmost terrifying. These tales are not my own. I simply overhear them from passers-by. Sniper's Creepy Crypt is open for 31 days and 31 days only, before it disappears for another year. So join us for some horror from the depths of the hell dimensions.
Linda Mayfield lived in a 2-story condo with one of her very good friends, Tina Selensky. They were very close and liked living together. Even though they could have gotten a smaller house, they both preferred more space. They often had friends over, so it was nice for that. One bright, warm summer morning, Linda was listening to one of her favorite CDs on her shelf stereo, while Tina was out at her hotel clerk job up in town. Linda was loving the atmosphere. The popping of the music coming from the stereo speakers, the bright, warm sun pouring through the open window, and her soft, comfortable bed on which she sat drawing a picture. The picture was of a strange but beautiful flower she had been seeing in her dreams lately. It had rows of big pink and purple petals which were soft and velvety. It had thick, bright green stem with some rather large leaves branching off it. The center of the flower was a large cluster of soft blue florets, similar to a daisy. Poking out of the center was a thin yellow antennae sprouts, which split off into even thinner, shorter sprouts. Linda was carefully drawing each feature, and when she was finished drawing the entire flower, she colored it with colored pencils. Though it was not her absolute favorite hobby, she enjoyed drawing. It seemed to calm her down, so she particularly enjoyed doing it when she was stressed or had had a bad day. It helped her forget about everything else for a while and just relax for a bit. When the picture was completely done, she held it up to the sunlight. She was not the prideful type, but she was proud of this picture. It was one of the best she had ever drawn. She put it in her artwork folder, which she kept in her nightstand drawer. Making her way over to her stereo and about to turn it off, she was startled by a sudden loud skipping and screeching noise. "Ah," she thought. She loved this song, and the only CD it was on was hard to find. She stopped and ejected it. There were some scratches on the back, which made sense, seeing as she'd had it since childhood. She was about to put it back in its case when she heard the front door open downstairs. Linda opened her bedroom door and walked over to the top of the stairs. From there, she could see that it was Tina. "Hey, Tina, I thought you were at work," she called down. "Hey," Tina called back. "I was, but I got off early." Tina seemed to be in a good mood. She walked around the corner and into the kitchen. Linda followed. They talked for a while about work, friends, and various other things until they decided they would go to the grocery store to get just a few things they were needing. Driving off in Tina's car, Linda turned on the radio. The store wasn't too far from the house, so it wouldn't take long to get there. Once they did, it was just like any other visit. They got everything they needed and drove home. The rest of the day went normal, but since they were both off work today and had been watching TV, cooking, and talking on the phone, time flew by. Soon it was dusk, and then the sun was on its way down, bringing with it the warmth of the day. Linda and Tina were talking about work again, laughing and joking around, when the doorbell rang. "I got it," Linda said. She got up from the couch and walked over to the door. She opened it. Nobody was there. She opened the screen door and looked around. She saw a small, dark red wooden box about the size of a picnic basket with fancy designs all over it. Small wooden legs held it slightly off the ground, and the lid was held shut by a sturdy-looking latch. However, there was no keyhole. It was lying on the porch against the wall. Linda picked it up and started to carry it into the living room. She could tell that there was something inside it, but it was packed in tight. "What's that?" asked Tina. "I don't know," Linda replied. She examined it and saw there was a small, neat writing engraved on the bottom. It said, "The betrayal of the Pharaoh is held within this box. If thou should claim it, the traitor shall be awakened and slaughter thee. Thou must not attempt to open it, for when the chosen time cometh, it shall open itself." This made Linda feel a little uneasy. What exactly was inside? A ghost or something? Among further investigation, she saw something that sent a chill down her spine. The designs all over it looked identical to the flower she had been seeing in her dreams. It was the flower she had been seeing in her dreams, and that alone, that made her want to throw it out into the street. But there was something about it that prevented her from doing so. She wanted to find out what it was first. Later that night, after Linda had brushed her teeth, she went into her room and set the box on top of her dresser. She walked over to her bed and climbed in and pulled up the covers. There was something very strange about that box, but it didn't feel right just to throw it out. Maybe it had some special meaning or something. Whatever it was, Linda was exhausted and didn't feel like figuring it out right now. She closed her eyes and slowly drifted off to sleep. However, she was soon awakened by something strange. It was a faint, scratching sound. She looked over at her digital clock. It was 3:33 a.m. She listened more carefully and realized it was coming from the front of the room, where the door was. With part of her still asleep, she climbed out of bed and made her way over to the light switch by her dresser, right where the sound was coming from. She flipped on the switch, but the light didn't follow. She waited. Maybe it was just a delay with the electricity? But after 10 seconds, it still wasn't turning on. She flipped it back off and made her way over to her nightstand, grabbing a small flashlight from the drawer. She turned it on, and a fairly narrow beam of light shot from it. She walked back over to her dresser and examined it. It was then she noticed that the scratching sound was coming from the little red box. "What the hell?" she thought, leaning in closer and listening more intently. Suddenly, it began shaking violently. Linda jumped back, shocked and afraid. Then it stopped. Just like that. Still nervous, Linda slowly and cautiously examined it, but there was nothing different about it. Dumbfounded, she walked back over to her bed. She got back into it and just lay there, thinking about what just happened. Maybe it was some sort of artifact. She would go to the library tomorrow and see if she could find anything on artifacts, or maybe even this box. Who knows? Maybe there were more of these weird types of boxes out there. Maybe they contained mechanisms which activated at random and caused the box to move. Or maybe there were living creatures in there, such as rodents or some big-ass bugs. Soon Linda's eyes began to feel heavy, and before long, she was back asleep. She slowly awoke to the sound of her loud, obnoxious alarm. Like every morning, it was almost painful to hold her eyes open. With them closed, she fumbled around her hand until she found the clock. Having done it countless times, she easily turned it off without even looking. She knew she had to get up, though, as she had to go to work. Then she remembered it was Saturday. I still need to get up, she thought. I want to see if I can find a book on that thing. Since the library was near Linda's house, and was big and pretty popular, it would be crowded if she didn't go early, especially since it was Saturday. Still groggy, she opened her eyes and slowly sat up and got out of bed. She tried the light switch. It worked now. She shrugged it off, assuming what happened last night was nothing but a dream. Because it wasn't all very clear when it happened. It was 7:30, but Tina wasn't home. Then Linda remembered Tina had to go out of town yet again, this time to meet the original owner and creator of the hotel she worked at, and would be staying the night at the first one ever made, which was out of town. Tina hadn't been very enthusiastic, though, and frankly saw it as a silly waste of time. Linda took a quick shower and got dressed. She got into her car and started it up. Since the library wasn't too far from the house, she arrived there pretty quickly. Sure enough, there were only 4 cars in the parking lot. She parked her car and got out. She walked up the steps and went through the double glass doors. At once, Linda could tell the air conditioning was on. It was nice and cool to a comfortable level. Such a nice relief from the hot summer humidity outside. She made her way over to the front desk. An old woman with bifocals looked up at her from a book she had been reading. "Yes, dear," she said in a kind voice. "Are you looking for a book?" "Yes," Linda replied. "This is a little hard to explain, but a small red box showed up on my doorstep. It's wooden and has a flower design all over it, but it's locked with a pretty sturdy latch, and there's no keyhole. It also has an ancient-looking writing on the bottom, so I was just wondering if you have any books on anything like that?" The entire time Linda had been explaining the box, the old woman's expression had gotten more and more uneasy. "That box," she said, staring at Linda. It's evil. I'm not quite sure what's inside, but over the years I've heard bad things about it." Linda's expression also turned uneasy. "Follow me," the old woman mumbled. She began to walk towards the countless rows of bookshelves. Linda followed. They were walking for a bit, then finally arrived at the very back of the building. The woman ran her finger over the books, apparently searching for one in particular. After a minute, she pulled out a big black tome. The cover looked leather and was falling apart. The gold words, "Ancient Evil," were printed across the front. Dust was caked all over it, and the pages were a sepia-like color. The woman handed it over to Linda. "Would you like to take it home?" Linda nodded. The two of them then started back to the front of the library. When they arrived, Linda set the heavy book on the counter and handed the woman her library card. The woman did her library sign-out business and gave it back to Linda, sliding the book over as well. "It says in here how to rid yourself of such evil. I hope you'll be able to do so, my dear. And may God be with you." This made Linda even more anxious, but she grabbed the book and walked out the glass doors. She got into her car and drove home. Once inside, she went upstairs to her room and sat on her bed and opened the book to page 1. She found the contents and looked for the word box, and sure enough, she came across the words Book of Xylon. It was page 226, so Linda started flipping, trying not to rip any of the fragile, weathered paper. When she arrived at page 226, she saw a picture of the exact same box she had received, with the exact same designs on it. She started at the top of the page. The Box of Xylon is by far one of the most evil things in this world. Long, long ago, there was a mighty pharaoh named Gore. One of his many servants, Xylon, resented Gore for enslaving him. One day, Xylon was given an order to fetch water for Gore from a nearby stream. Xylon fetched the water, but he also extracted the oil from a beautiful yet deadly plant known as Virolia. There was an illustration of the same flower Linda had been seeing in her dreams. It continued. The pharaoh fell violently ill after drinking the water and was informed of Xylon's treachery by another servant. In his dying words, Galorum told his guards to make Xylon suffer the same fate he was, and to stuff him in a small box where he would never escape. Then Galorum perished. The next night, Xylon was forced to ingest a large amount of the Virolia. A box was then created, engraved with the design of the fatal plant. It was tinted a dark red resembling blood, which symbolized death. As Xylon's breathing became heavy, he swore that he would get his revenge, that anybody who touched the box would be slaughtered by him. He was ignored, however, and even laughed at. The guards brutally snapped his bones to fit him down to size and stuffed him inside the box, as he screamed and cried, cursing and spitting that they would be sorry. The box was then closed and held shut by a strong metal lock, latched and sealed. It was placed inside a tomb. Only 2 days later, one of the guards was discovered brutally murdered in his bed. All of his limbs, including his neck, were broken in awkward ways, and he was literally chewed to a pulp. The next day, another guard was found killed in the same manner. One by one, all of the guards had been broken out of shape and chewed up. Nobody ever caught who had done it, but everyone suspected that it had been Xylon getting his revenge. A message was even inscribed on the bottom of the box to warn anyone who saw it, either out of curiosity or theft, that there was evil within the box. The message read, "The betrayal of the Pharaoh is held within this box. If thou should claim it, the traitor shall be awakened and slaughter thee. Thou must not attempt to open it, for when the chosen time cometh, it shall open itself." Nobody wanted to go near the box, nor his tomb. Even speaking of it was considered taboo. Now it is said, if you dream of the Viola flower, the box of Xylon will arrive at your home. Then just 2 days after having passed, you will have been broken and chewed by the angry Xylon, as supposedly 2 days is how long he remained alive in the box after it was sealed. It is said even if you disown it, he will still find you. It has been seen many times around the world, arriving on unwitting people's property. Nobody knows exactly how it travels around, but it is said to be Xylon himself, trying to kill as many people as possible. He allegedly waits for unsuspecting victims to accept the box into their homes, so in 2 days he can have the pleasure and satisfaction of taking another life. The victims do not appear to be connected in any way, reinforcing the belief that he does simply wish to take as many lives as he can, wherever he can. Linda was trembling now, her heart thudding. Could this really be that box? Maybe she was just having a prank played on her, although the box in this picture was identical to the one she had received. Linda just kept looking at the picture, then over at the box on her dresser, and back again. There was one final paragraph in the chapter. If you find yourself trapped with the box of Xylon, you must wait until the second night. He will find you no matter where you put the box. The only way to put him to rest is to wait until he is extremely close to you. Just close enough to hear you whisper. Then you must whisper the words, "Xylon, it is okay to sleep now." You cannot rush or slur or shout the words, otherwise they will do nothing. However, if they do work, Xylon will finally rest. He will leave and supposedly never kill again. Linda was shocked. Linda looked back up at the box, very afraid now that she knew what was inside. She was filled with dread. "I don't think I can do this," she thought, but she knew that it was her only hope, and if all this was true, doing it would save her life. It was almost 9 o'clock now, and she was still home all alone. She slowly got up and walked over to the dresser where the box was sitting. Cautiously, she picked it up and started carrying it downstairs. If this wasn't true, at least she could put her mind to rest knowing it was locked away. Maybe the stuff she read was just a legend, meant to scare people who happened to find the box. She reached the bottom of the steps, rounded the railing, and opened the door to a small storage space under the stairs. The door had a lock on it, so she put the box inside a shelf in the storage area and closed the door. She grabbed the key from Tina's room and locked it. Feeling a bit better, she climbed back up the stairs and went to her room. She closed the door behind her and got into bed. She was tired, which she hadn't realized before. Since she had been so shaken, she soon fell asleep and remained as such for a while. Until later, she woke up to the sound of a door creaking open. It was coming from downstairs. She looked at the clock. 3:33 a.m. Tina must be back, she thought, but then she remembered that Tina wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow morning. Then she got a sick feeling in the pit of her stomach when she heard the staircase steps creaking. Someone was coming up the stairs. Linda closed her eyes tightly. This isn't real. This isn't real. She cried inside her head. I have to be dreaming. I'll wake up soon and everything will be fine. But the creaking of the steps grew closer and closer to the top until they arrived. And soft footsteps could be heard making their way towards Linda's bedroom door. Linda was horrified. She pulled the covers up over her head. Even worse, she could hear the doorknob being turned. Then she heard the sound of the door slowly creeping open. No, no, she cried silently. She was on the verge of panicking as she continued to listen. The only thing she could hear now was heavy, raspy breathing. She wondered if she should pull down the covers and look at the doorway, but she was too afraid. After about a minute and still nothing else, she finally decided she'd better look. Still trembling, she lowered the blanket slowly, but everything was pitch black. Then she remembered the flashlight. Ever so slowly, she reached out, opened her nightstand drawer and obtained it. I'll count to 3, she thought. Then I'll turn it on. She pointed the currently off flashlight in the direction of the doorway and got ready. 1. Her heart was thudding so hard. In fact, she was afraid that whoever this was could actually hear it. 2. Her breathing picked up, and even though she tried not to be too loud, it was hard. She braced herself. 3. She flipped on the flashlight and saw the dark silhouette of a person standing in the doorway. It was very thin, but something was wrong. There was no head. Frozen with shock, Linda let her eyes adjust and focus, then she saw it. The skinny, shriveled figure had a head, but was bent and twisted down against the chest, facing her and staring at her through empty eye sockets. The flashlight flickered out, and Linda suddenly got very lightheaded. You could hear her own rapid breathing echoing through her head. She felt a constant wave of feverish heat and a feeling of sheer terror. She was panicking, hyperventilating uncontrollably, her eyes bulged in disbelief. The flashlight flickered on again. The figure was closer, standing at the foot of her bed. It had a twisted, deranged grin on its bony face, exposing rotting, pointy teeth. Then the light went out again. Linda couldn't control herself. Her mind kept telling her she was going to die. Just then, she heard the raspy breathing coming right beside her head. The flashlight came on one last time. She pointed over in that direction, just in time to see a grey, wrinkled, upside-down face creeping up towards her, its mouth wide open and its eye sockets like black holes. Then once again the light went out. Linda heard herself whisper a sentence, almost as if there was someone speaking for her. Cylon, it's okay to sleep now. Instantly, the heavy breathing stopped and the flashlight came back on, revealing there was nothing there. All of this was too much for Linda. With her last second of consciousness, she knew and reassured herself that it was over. And she fell back asleep and just lay there, not to wake up until tomorrow.
That concludes our tale for today. Return tomorrow for another horror-filled experience. Wherever you come from and wherever you're going, thank you for spending some time here with us at Sniper's Creepy Crypt. Remember, traveler, eyes ahead, don't look back. Until next time, good night and good luck.